Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Trust Podcast. We've been on hiatus this summer. We haven't done this in a couple of months, so it's great to be back with you all. I hope everyone's having a great summer, and I am super excited for today's show. And not only do I have my brother and co-founder at Maha here with me, but we also get to talk about his new book, which I'm really excited to talk about today. So welcome, Gagan. Welcome to the show, and excited to have you here.
Oh, it's so good to be with you. How many years has it been now since we founded Maha? What has it been?
It's
30?
been several. It's been several years. It's like
Dog years
we,
of a startup.
it's like we went from COVID to you know the everyone's being accused of being woke. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that have happened in these years, um,
Yeah.
and, and through it all, some things remain the same, which I'm really excited to lean in, with you on here today, because this idea of, do your followers actually believe you? Is your brand actually believed? Is, I think, a really timely conversation, because we can talk about all these different moments in history, in recent history, and changes, but this question around, do I have trust in my personal brand, in my company's brand, and do people believe what I'm saying? Do people believe what my brand stands for? That is that is always there, and it's a fundamental issue. And I think today I'm excited to talk about this dichotomy of how leaders tend to chase growth, and they do that a lot of times at all costs. And instead, the great ones, really what differentiates leaders from the great leaders, are the great leaders create gravity. And I want to lean into that conversation with you, and it's super juicy, and I want to get into it. Before I do, though, I'd love, since you and I have never actually done one of these together, I'd love for us to just talk for just a few minutes, and I'd love maybe for you to kick it off around the beginning of Maha. I mean, you actually came up with the name, which, in today's world, a lot of people ask, like, why did you come up with that name, Maha? But that name has been, to me, it's a beautiful name, and you created it. So I'll let you talk about the genesis of Maha from your perspective.
Yeah. Well, it's really good to be here with you. I'm so excited that you're doing this. It's so needed, and that we get to do this together. Yeah. I mean, well, we didn't know that RFK Jr. would come on the scene with Maha, Make America Healthy Again, and come to the heights that it has. So,
A lot of
being
what's
a
traffic off of it.
yeah, I mean, it's being a branding guy. For over 20 years, I've run my agency Guru, and we've done a lot of naming and branding and campaign development for big and small purpose-driven companies. And naming is one of my favorite things. And originally when we came together, Maha, so it means the great in Sanskrit, you know. And when we came together, where you and I really connected, I was coming from, the background doing storytelling for all these B Corp companies and activist brands and big movements and stuff like that. That's what I've devoted my career to. And you came out of, kind of management consulting, VC, and kind of burnt yourself out in that world. And after, it took a
Almost
heart
left this
attack, I
world
know,
as a result of, yeah.
on your side, to realize, well, maybe this isn't the path. And you started to work more with B Corps and business as a force for good. So that was really, the nexus of you and I coming together, was like, how can we use business as a force for good? I'd been doing it with these smaller activist B Corp brands, like I said, forever. And I remember, and you were just starting to work on, okay, how do I bring like influencers together with companies to do good things in the world? And was working on a big influencer platform and stuff like that. So I was coming at it from the storytelling side. You were coming at it from this influence side early in these, influencer days in quotes. And when we came together, I mean, first off, we saw values alignment through and through, but we kind of looked at each other and we said, look, it's great that we can, keep working with all these amazing B Corp brands that are doing great things in the world. But if we could just move some of these larger businesses and enterprises a little bit, if we could elevate their behavior a little bit, that could have massive impact in the world, more than maybe 100, of these other smaller companies I was working on. So that became kind of the North Star, was like, how can we elevate behavior? And we know from years of watching it trying to happen, it wasn't going to happen from like telling, hey, you need to be better, you need to change your behavior, you're doing it for the good of the world. That argument was not really working well. And so began kind of the beginning of a journey to find out, what can we leverage, like how can we shift big brands. And the other thing that happened right at that time, and I'll pause, is the Sustainable Development Goals came out, from the United Nations, or it's just after they came out. And this big report came out, and I'll never forget, you showed it to me. You said, look, there's like over 10,000 brands signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals. These are, for those of you that don't know, the Sustainable Development Goals developed at the United Nations. Actually, one of our initial founding board members and advisors was one of the writers of the Sustainable Development Goals, and it's 17 goals, thematic goals, that sort of are areas of impact that you could lean into, whether philanthropically or business wise, like ocean health or future of cities or energy consumption, things like this. So, so we said, okay, there's over 10,000 brands signed up to this, but under 10% of them were actually executing on their commitments. So you've got a bunch of CEOs signing pledges and commitments that they're actually not executing on, and their teams don't know how to execute on. And that was the impetus. That was the beginning, was you and I saying, how do we help them actually go forward with their commitments, actually be accountable to doing what they're saying they're going to do. And we named it Maha because we kept thinking of all these things. There was the storytelling piece, there's the influencer piece, there was a sort of how do we look at the analytics side of it? How do we look at educating employees so that employees are onboarded and get the skills to actually execute on these commitments that, how do ops, for instance, how did they start to move forward with sustainability commitments and things that the CEO is making? And we fumbled around a lot to look for what was that leverage point. I think that was sort of the beginning, but we knew that's what the North Star was. That's the purpose of this company, and it has been, and it still remains that.
Yeah, and I think that just extending that, that purpose is really for the business, and around, Maha being the greatest, is really also around connecting the doing good in whatever that looks like, not as an ancillary side benefit or a philanthropy movement, but connecting it to actually the growth of the business. And even today in 2026, and we started this company several years ago, even today, and we'll share today, we'll point to case after case of companies that are actually serving their stakeholders and outperforming their competition in the process. And it doesn't change with the political climate. It's actually just good business. And,
Yeah.
the other piece, which I think anchors the book conversation that I'm so excited about here as well, is when we started the business together, I was doing a lot of personal coaching of CEOs and founders. And what I noticed over and over again was this disconnect between the good they wanted to do and how they couldn't drive it in their business. And so part of what we've tried to create here is a blueprint and a framework for how you can take the gravity of what you're trying to create as a leader and implement it in your organization and shift that Titanic, maybe one or two clicks, but ultimately create transformation that makes a difference both for your own individual purpose, but also for the organization. And so that's how we came together, and it's been a beautiful journey together.
Well, and if I can just jump in on that, I
Yeah,
mean, I think something also early on that really sort of became the leverage point, which was you said at one point, looking at these graphs of where enterprise value has been over the last 50 years. And over the last 50 years, it's gone from, under 50% in intangible value, you know, where most of organizations' value was intangible value. It has moved to now being like 90% intangible value, meaning brand equity, meaning reputation.
yeah.
Um, Also the trust that you build with your stakeholders. And so that, I mean, in our journey was pivotal because that became the leverage point. We thought, okay, the way to elevate behavior is by companies knowing that they will make more money if they do it. Potentially, if they what are the risks out there, what are the opportunities out there for them to create value for their organization, that intangible value. And so it, it, we realized that that became not just what you do, but what you say about, what you're doing as well.
And the alignment
Um,
between those two things.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it was, incredible in that journey to then bring on, you met I think the other piece of the journey that at least we should put out there is meeting the Dartmouth crew and these evolutionary biologists that were looking at reputation in business. They were basically saying, okay, we've been studying why species, certain animals thrive and certain ones die in the wild. And they developed a methodology to look at data sets to tell them why
Predictive
that
framework.
is.
Yeah.
Predictive frameworks
Yeah.
of futures for, and so they started to apply that to businesses. And it turns out that, just like these, like species, animals, adaptation and management of their ecosystem and building trust with their ecosystem, and be is there's parallels there. So what we ended up kind of finding our way into was this model of like it's like biomimicry for business. We're basically now looking at gravity, what you're talking about, belief in an organization, but data. We're looking at the data behind that and giving you quantifiable predictions on how you can build gravity, how you can build belief with your organization. Don't, and why you should maybe take certain behaviors or not, and where can you do storytelling or marketing based on those behaviors to continue to compound gravity around your organization, which in the end compounds the value of the enterprise.
So we're going to move on because we could keep talking about Maha and the origin story for a long time. But I love talking about it with you. But I want to move on to, um, you know, this this idea of the book that you just launched, Start Your Own Damn Cult. It's so relevant to what we just talked about, but through a different lens, and maybe I want to start by just asking you why in 2026 was this the moment to write this book?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it had been sort of wanting to get out of me for a while, for years, honestly. As what we've been doing for 20 years is building these movements and brands, and sort of thinking about what have been the commonalities between brands and movements that have catalyzed very quickly and grown and become, global movements in some ways. Um, Working on Obama '08 and brands like Patagonia, and big nonprofits like 1% for the Planet, USDA Organic, and things like this. And so I'd been sort of quietly like sitting back and witnessing as we're building these things, what are the commonalities? What's coming together, Rise? And I kept coming back to the same things. And I would love to be able to service every purpose-driven entrepreneur and brand and movement in the world. But the truth is we can't. And I felt like I wanted to put this into a workbook that someone could take and do themselves. And they can learn from it. You actually, there's prompts and practices and reflections for leaders to work with. And that could be a founder, or it could be a CMO or a CSO, or whomever. But there's sort of two spines to it. One is sort of how to build that cult movement. How does Nike become Nike? How does Patagonia become Patagonia? How did they build that kind of gravity and evangelism? And so there's a workbook to move through that. And there's also, as you're moving through it, there is another layer to the book, which is about learning various leadership principles, and how you can be a more integrated human, how you can bring all aspects of yourself to work and create a place of joy, a place of innovation and creativity, that helps not only yourself have more coherence with the mission of what you're working on, but all your employees, that you can build from the inside out and build coherence for them and their families. So that's what I believe this kind of next epoch of business, I hope, will be, is with this coming of AI, and various other challenges and opportunities that are surfacing, that we each have the opportunity to sort of really think about what is uniquely for me to bring forth in this life.
Yeah.
And whether that's a business, a brand, a product, it's working on someone else's, becoming a part, offering my unique skill set to building their movement or brand. How do I bring my full self into that? And I just felt like at this time where there's been a lot of suffering, a lot of myths, I think, that people buy into in the workplace, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, that maybe go against how we're supposed to be living on this planet. So that's the deeper why,
Yeah, as I read the book, what I felt was very timely was the notion of starting your own damn cult, and creating it as a force for driving, business. Um, it starts with the personal, right? And I think in 2026, um, it's interesting where we look at companies as a reflection of their CEOs more than ever. And in fact, the CEO is the mouthpiece. I mean, whether it's Elon Musk or Sam Altman or whoever it is, increasingly it's the CEO out in front, weighing in on their company, on social and environmental issues. So it's a moment also for the leadership to calibrate themselves and then bring
That's
that
right.
calibration back to their company, because their employees are watching, and their investors are watching, and their customers are watching, and their partners are watching. Everyone is watching that coherence, and it manifests itself in innovation, it manifests itself in governance, it manifests itself in less lawsuits, all that stuff,
Mm.
if you actually have that coherence. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the core pillars, because I think that's also important maybe for everyone to maybe have a takeaway from this conversation with, because there are four that I think are really powerful. One is kind of the belief that belief is the underpriced business asset. I think that goes with the intangible asset piece. It kind of corresponds to that. but belief is the underpriced business asset. And
Mm.
so that to me is one core pillar. And I'll just go through
And,
these.
and belief happens from the inside out.
That's right.
I'll just color on this for a second. It starts with that founder remembering why they started this, circus to begin with,
Yeah.
um, and why their baby needs to exist in the world. And it starts there, and then, from that place you can really crystallize kind of the soul of the business. Then you can start to align your stakeholders, your team, into more of a flow state, around that thing, that spark, that essence. Then you can start to amplify outwards, through storytelling and marketing and all kinds of things. That's one of the interesting things in this journey that's happened for me, is like everyone comes to Guru, to our agency, for the campaign they've seen us do for another brand or a website, or something like that. And then we get in there and we sort of start taking them back to the beginning and build from the inside out. Let's not just jump over all the people that already love this business, and let's start the gravity there. Let's not jump over them and try to get everyone that doesn't know about it yet. And that's a common mistake, I think, when people are moving through this.
Yeah, and I can give a specific example on that one. There's a company that we're working with. They're a pharmaceutical company that has an incredible therapeutic, and the whole company is built on this notion of health equity and access. And that therapeutic is changing the game in this specific area of healthcare. The stock has grown like crazy, but they're now demonstrating that the therapeutic is too expensive for a lot of people to afford. And a lot of people inside the company are feeling like, gosh, this does not connect to our mission. We need to
Mm.
create more access. And the CEO is saying, well, the stock is doing great. And so this is a great example of like growth versus gravity. And if
Mm.
you can, and I actually think if they created more access to that therapeutic, they would make more money in the long run. But this
Mhm.
this is a great example of the inside the company, the employees are losing a little bit of trust
Yeah.
in belief, and it's starting to manifest itself in trade journals and publications as well. And that is the beginning of an issue because there is dissonance there,
Yeah.
and they're missing the moment to build the gravity that
Yeah.
could
And
be the next level.
and this is what I'm so proud of what you've led, really, in building Darwin, our platform at Maha. Is like, I've been saying this since the beginning of my career, but we're now quantifying it. We are literally showing the data of gravity. What does that mean for your business? What's the financial impact of not making a change there? It's the first time that from what I've seen out there, that anyone's been able to do that. So, um, yeah, it's that. I know that pharmaceutical example is very interesting.
Yeah.
On the other side of it, and I know you want to go through the four,
Yeah,
but I just can't help myself. It's like, I've had the pleasure to work with Patagonia over the years, right? And um, what an incredible company. I mean, whenever we do brand crushes, when we're starting a campaign or something with someone, Patagonia is always on there, right? But if you think about it, that first book, the book that Yvonne Chouinard, the founder, wrote, Let My People Go Surfing, it starts at the inside. It starts with taking care of the people that are at Patagonia, and finding what they're passionate about, and bringing coherence between their personal purpose and the mission of this thing. And then what we had the opportunity to work with Patagonia on. I mean, he said this quote one time. He said, "People buy a sweater every 10 years, but they eat 3 times a day. If we're going to have a real impact on climate as a company, we've got to get into food." And so that was like 7 years ago, and Patagonia hired us, um, and they had launched with Bronner's and Rodale Institute regenerative organic certification, which was this idea to bring together regenerative, which is getting carbon out of the air into the soil, organic and fair trade when it comes to natural products. And they were launching that, and as on alongside of that, launching the food brand Patagonia Provisions, which we got invited into launching both of those things with them. And it and then from there, you saw a few years later, they actually moved into becoming a perpetual purpose trust where their only shareholder is the planet.
Yeah.
Um, and you talk about building belief and evangelism, behind an organization. Um, it's been incredible to watch, and be a part of that journey as well.
And I think that's a good segue into maybe the second pillar, which is that devotion is earned through meaning, not manipulation. And again, going back to this notion of the say do gap, like if you're saying one thing and you're doing something else, your employees and all your other stakeholders are going to look at that and be like, what are we doing? But if there's
That's right.
coherence, the devotion follows. And how have you seen that manifest itself in working with all the brands you worked with?
I mean, this is the only way that we market. I mean, you see things like Fire Festival come years ago where they paid all these influencers to build all this hype. I mean, the influencer side of marketing has gotten out of control. If you've got money, you can fabricate a cult following,
Yeah.
right? You can make it look like there's gravity and belief, and there's nothing. It's vapor. Um, and so, for us, again, it's about building from the inside out, and leaning into the more that we can create that coherence for employees, that devotion starts to manifest. They become, and that's why I like to steal this word cult back. It's funny because you say the word cult. I mean, obviously it's provocative in the title and whatnot, and but
Yeah.
you say that word and people start to think of all kinds of negative associations. But the root of it, cultus, is actually to care deeply, to inhabit devotion, to something. And so I don't want to go too far with, obviously people are working for, companies, and it doesn't have to be a religious experience. But I will tell you that when you feel that true purpose and that devotion to the company you're working in or for, um, it's incredible what comes out of that, the kind of work. I mean, when I look back over the last 20 years, the work that Guru has been doing, the best work all came out of when people could not stop. They were just having so much fun and feeling that purpose, with it. And I think, companies, you know, they organizations out there have an opportunity to better understand what the various subcultures that they're trying to reach as an organization, what they care about, what are the deeper human truths that those subcultures care about. Culture overall is just made up of a bunch of different subcultures. And so the more that organizations can better understand, those subcultures, they can then start to create real devotion through meaning to those subcultures. And that's really a lot of the work we're doing these days. I call it culture-centered design, but
Hmm.
it's building devotion through authentic meaning and authentic connection with these subcultures that are growing in society.
Hmm. Hmm. Fascinating. Um, what about leadership as an act of love? When you talk about that core pillar in the book, how does one reconcile leadership and love in a business setting? Talk about that a little bit, and maybe give us an example of a leader you've seen that's led with love. I think that would be great to share.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of folks that would be more well known that I could probably put out there. Um, but leading as an act of love. I mean, the opportunity that is in that is there for us in this next economy is really thinking about it as a love economy. I think, how do we really create um, a love marks?
Yeah.
What we call in advertising, like Nike, the swoosh is a love mark. They've built love for that mark with so many out there. And I mentioned Patagonia earlier as an example as well. Around here, it's funny. It's like Clover Sonoma, who we've been working on for a decade here in the Bay. If you live anywhere in the San Francisco area, you've seen the billboards everywhere of Chloe,
Yeah.
the cow that, she's a personification of all the values of this dairy company. Um, but she's very fun and quirky, and she has been able to build a lot of love with the communities, here in California. And so sometimes it's sort of how do you know, uh, do it not just from a value standpoint, but from a personality standpoint as well. How do treat your communities? Clover has been, supporting these communities for over 100 years. Um, and so when these families whose grandmas have used clover forever, it's been passed down through. I mean, dairy, it's a commodity, but there is love in
Yeah.
that, milk. And they've really acted as a leader in dairy as well, and elevating dairy as an overall category. First American Humane Association certified dairy, pushing all the environmental, sides of how to take care of family farms, being a B Corp, being 1% for the planet, like all these different areas. These are all acts of love. And actually, we did this campaign for them, Clover, the only dairy with love in it, because it has in Clover, it spells love. But we really, this is what we're trying to do from a place of authenticity with any organization that we
Yeah.
grow with.
And what comes up for me with that pillar is AI has driven all sorts of um, wild behavior from leaders, and it's gone in a bunch of different directions. I think in the last 6 months, so many CEOs have decided to share with the street that they're laying people off, that they're laying employees off because of AI, because that sounds cool, and
Mm,
it seems like they can save money by doing that. It's not really a leading by love example, and we're now seeing kind of the tsunami effect of that. Ford just announced that 300 engineers that they laid off because they thought AI could take over their jobs. Turns out the AI can't take their jobs, and they're hiring those engineers back.
mm,
And so it was a rash move. They're bringing it back. We'll see kind of what the impact of that is to the business, but there are other automotive companies that have gone on record as saying we're not laying off our talent. We're going to empower them with AI, and we're going to actually be more effective as a result. And I think in the AI economy, what's emerging quickly is that if you think you can just replace human uh, um, work with machines, maybe in 5 years from now that's true, but right now it's an additive. It's you can create more scale, more capacity, more innovation by having humans and AI work together. And that's a great example of leadership looking at workforce and culture and thinking about how to integrate with love versus making very rash decisions that can that are a not leading with love, but b might not actually be good for your business.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, within the book, I hit on some of these subjects in the first part of the journey, in sort of looking at your relationship with the world around you, and concepts like do no harm. How do you deliver your product or service in a way that's more conscious, taking care of the planet, taking care of the people within your system, um, and doing that through proper governance and things like that as well. I mean, I think that's where it starts. That's where you start to, become accountable to how you show up. I mean, I'll say vulnerably at Guru, um, in the beginning, it was all about what we were working on. It was like, we're working on these massive, impact movements and brands that are going to make the world a better place. The truth of it was, I was still bringing in big agency expats that were getting grinded at my agency, working on stuff that really matters, but still getting grinded in how we work together. And it took me, years to realize it's not just the what we're working on; it's really the how as
Mm.
well. We work together, and how do I, um, lead with love? How do I build more of a regulated leadership, a central nervous system that isn't frayed, at the helm, and then it really, we started winning awards. We started, I mean, the work got better. I feel like we were being more creative, more innovative, when we were able to not just bring in things where there was coherence of purpose, but also um, really starting to integrate, dare I say, love, into how we work with each other, how we're compassionate, in how we think together, have more shared leadership. All that takes some love for what you're working on, who you're working with. Um, and again, I mean, I think this is kind of some of the power of Maha and Darwin, is like, in this book, like what I'm trying to do, I'm telling you how to build belief out of authenticity, and how to be a more accountable leader, and ultimately a more liberated leader, because you're going to bring this idea of shared leadership in. So I'm trying to help you either build belief or scale belief. Move your cult following into the mainstream in various ways. What Darwin is telling you, if it's working, are those knob turns that you're doing, those behavior modifications, the storytelling you're doing out, is it landing out there in the world? Is it landing with your employees? Is it landing with investors? Is it landing with the market?
Yeah.
um, and we're getting predictive about what are the moves that you can make that will add the most value,
What's the
right?
next
Well,
best step to adding more gravity? Like what is that? What is
that's
that?
right. That's right.
So I want to just hit the last pillar because I think it's a really important one. And then we want to open this up to some questions. And we have a special gift for the audience here as well. But the last question, or the last pillar, is money has intention. And in my forward to your book, I actually speak to that because we were going to bring on an investor in the business, and you were like, "Whoa, hold on, I think that we can go in a different direction." And we did. And our investor community is incredible. They're all individual. They're building gravity in their own right. They've helped us in so many different ways. And I do believe that if we had taken that money in, there would have been a different, things could have gone in a different direction. And so that one really speaks to me personally. And I think that that is a very important pillar in building your cult.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to say about this, but I'll just say, energy does go where the money comes in, what your capital stack looks like. Unfortunately, your cap table can define the values quickly in your company, um, and it can really erode them as well, and then erode trust. And for years. I mean, I've been in this social venture network community. I chaired that community as we brought together Investor Circle and Social Venture Network, one of the premier sort of impact investor communities in the country. And to me, I was always looking at this piece because people were calling it impact capital because they were just putting it with a company that happened to have some good mission within there somewhere, you know,
Some
and
people
that
view
became
impact investing as how much impact can I make to my return?
right. Yeah, for sure. Definitely that is a squishy term, impact investing. And I think, to me, I was always like, okay, great. Like you're investing in a dairy brand that's doing the right thing. Great. But how are you investing? Like, how is that capital placed at a company? So that is it patient? Is it values aligned? Like, does it protect the mission or does it erode it? Because is that money looking for
Oh, well
short
said.
term gains and short term returns? Or is it looking for long term gravity that in a company that is true to its original mission and why it needs to exist in the world? I mean, those are the only businesses that should exist, right? Like, why would we create anything, any organization that would harm us, that would harm the planet or harm people? I mean, to me, there's such cognitive dissonance,
Well,
in that.
it only happens because the gravity of the organization has been lost. The gravity of the leadership has been lost.
And
That's
and
why.
and and typically, once it goes, then it's a slippery slope, a downward spiral of trying to capture, short-term gains and, oh, I was off that quarter.
Yeah.
And so decisions are made to increase profitability. But I mean, bring it all back around to me. Um, Really, what I think everyone deserves is to, find their unique reason for being, bring that into the world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, I mean, there's certain skill sets that lend themselves to being an entrepreneur. And there's certain ones that lend to being an intrapreneur, to helping be a part of a larger fabric that grows, and that's fantastic. And I just hope that everyone can find that and then lean into that and their leadership with accountability to their values, to how they want to show up in the world and their integrity. And not that we're not, myself and I know you and Maha Darwin, it's not telling anyone what to believe. It's not telling anyone what to do necessarily even. What we're saying is if you say you're going to do something, do it. Align your behavior with what you say. Just be accountable in this world, where there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there in the world today. The opportunity to birth something or grow something of real meaning, and then make commitments and follow through on them and build gravity because of that, and build an engaged, excited team that is devoted because of that, is such a beautiful opportunity. And so, if nothing else, what I hope is that this book can help people find that for themselves, and even giving it to your bosses or whomever else, so that
I
you
mean,
can find that for
I
your
want to
team.
acknowledge you for creating a very accessible roadmap for that. I think it's beautifully done and extremely accessible, and actually doesn't take a lot of time to come up with that blueprint. So beautifully done, Gagan. I was really inspired by the book. Um,
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was, and I tried to bring as much irreverence and of my sort of love of writers like Tom Robbins and Ram Dass and others, as possible, because I think, you know, we need levity as well in this world, and let's have some fun with this,
yeah.
right? It can be work and play on purpose. What I always tell people.
So we're kind of running out of time, but we have an audience here, and I'd love to open it up to a couple of questions. Do we have any questions coming through the audience? And as we queue that up, at the end, we have a very interesting offer for a few folks if they're interested in taking advantage of it. But do we have questions? Did we answer everything? Okay. Well, if well, I'll go to an offer. The offer is, you know, one thing we didn't talk about was that this book, I think for you, has also been a portal into doing more um, executive coaching and executive leadership, and you've been doing more of that in addition to your agency work, and that's something that I know gets you personally very excited, and you get a lot of fulfillment out of that. um, and what we thought would be interesting is to marry your coaching with at Maha, we deliver what we call a theme brief, which is basically a report out on the risks and opportunities of a particular theme that a leader is focused on. And what we thought would be interesting is to gift a theme brief to and but marry it with that theme brief alongside a Gagan session where Gagan can take that theme brief in your organization and help you actually use all the tools that are in the book to drive change and to build gravity in your organization. So we thought we'd do that for three members of our audience. And so we're going to put that out there. And the first three that raise their hand, we'll provide that gift for. Oh, I think we got a raised hand already. But do we have a question, Irshad? Do you want to, you have questions in the audience?
No question.
No questions. Okay.
And I think we were gonna we'll put it out afterwards. But yeah, I'm happy to. I think this is the beautiful opportunity here is just we provide these. I mean, these theme briefs are incredible for your organization, and obviously my background is more in the communication side, and so how do you utilize something like this to really leverage it within your organization and outside of your organization? What are the storytelling opportunities off of it? What are the opportunities for it to create, more belief? Yeah, definitely excited to continue doing this for organizations of all sizes. It's been a lot of fun. We just, I'll name one as a example, and then I know we want to close it up. But I'm not going to use it by name, but a multinational food brand with over 100 sub brands underneath it that last year we worked with to really look at how can they build trust after being around for 150 or so years, and maybe having certain reputation around certain areas of their business. How do you actually build trust and not just like manipulation through marketing, but real trust? And through looking at some of the intelligence that we got about them, the recommendation was to really lean into transparency and vulnerability, and to look at sort of the past, the present place they are on their journey to becoming a more a better sort of I'd say citizen company of the world, steward of this planet, and where they want to go. Not necessarily that they're there all the way, but the unlock was that just because they're not where they want to be yet, it doesn't mean they shouldn't be talking about the journey transparently and bringing their stakeholders along on the ride. And so, ended up developing a large program for them that can help them to do that. Which, obviously they'll continue to elevate their behavior towards their aspirational state, but in the near term, they can have wins along the way and be building a lot of trust, because in this day and age, it's not about getting everything perfect. It's about being accountable, and it's about transparently kind of sharing where you're at on the journey. So just as an example of what can come out of these sort of brief and coaching sessions.
Yeah, it's the best next step, right? Like I hear a lot, well, we can't be Patagonia. Don't talk to me about Patagonia because we're never going to be Patagonia. It's like, well, we're not asking you to be Patagonia, but there's a blueprint for how to build more belief and trust with your stakeholders, and there's a path to doing that. And do you want to be on that journey or not? And it's a decision. It's a conscious decision that's actually a material decision for your business also.
That's
So,
right.
So with that, Gagan, thank you so much for the book, for your partnership, for your friendship and your brotherhood, and for your time here on this podcast.
Be honored, really, to be on this journey with you. Thank you so much, and thanks for everyone for being a part of this. And don't be a stranger.
Take care, everyone. Till next time. Bye-bye.